Welcome to Cinepro,
Please, just tell me, what did I do? Please!
where we bring your favorite movies back to life with quick recaps, hidden details, and everything you missed. The movie starts with a strange man, and we'll temporarily call him the Stranger. He wakes up in what seems to be a mass grave. Naturally, he's terrified. The Stranger can't remember anything, not even his own name, which makes the situation even scarier. While he's still trying to process everything, a girl appears above the pit, looks down at him, and then walks away. Shortly after, the Stranger finds a gun on one of the bodies in the pit and decides to keep it. Moments later, the same girl returns and throws him a rope. He uses it to climb out of the pit. Once he's out, the Stranger finds himself in the middle of a forest. He wanders around until he stumbles upon a house and decides to go inside. Inside the house, he encounters an unusual scene. The girl who helped him earlier is there, along with 3 other people, 2 men and another woman. We learn that the girl's name is Sharon, and the 2 men are Lucas and Michael. There's also a man lying on the floor who looks dead. The Stranger raises his gun, pointing it at everyone, and demands to know who they are. Lucas then pulls out his own weapon and accuses the Stranger of being the one who killed all the people in the pit. The Stranger doesn't respond, as he has no memory of anything. Amid the tense standoff, the seemingly dead man suddenly wakes up, revealing that he was only unconscious. This calms everyone down, and they start talking. The group explains to the Stranger that they all woke up in the house with no memory of who they are or how they got there. All they know is that one of them woke up with an ID card and a car key, but the car isn't anywhere nearby. From the ID card, they learned their names and little else. The man who just regained consciousness is named Ness. As for the girl who helped the Stranger, she is mute and communicates in a language no one understands. Although it seems like she knows something, she can't explain it to the others. The Stranger tries to communicate with her but fails. Lucas, on the other hand, remains suspicious of the Stranger, especially since he woke up in the pit with no explanation. The Stranger insists that he remembers nothing, just like the rest of them, and suggests they search the house for clues about their identities. The group agrees and begins exploring the house. While searching, the Stranger finds a calendar with a specific date marked, the 18th of the month, a day that hasn't arrived yet. He feels that something significant will happen on that day and suspects the mute girl knows the secret behind it. He shows her the calendar and asks her to explain, but she can't. Meanwhile, Lucas discovers a safe filled with weapons. Michael selects one and starts loading it like a professional, though he has no memory of how he knows how to handle guns. Ness speculates that Michael might have been a soldier, which could explain his skills. No one dwells on this for long, as they decide to leave the house and explore the forest in hopes of finding a phone or any means of contacting the police. The Stranger, Sharon, and Lucas set out, while Michael stays behind with the mute girl. As the group searches the forest, they come across a cabin. Inside, they find a woman who looks strange, doesn't speak, and keeps screaming. She resembles a zombie and is eating some bizarre food. The moment she sees the Stranger, she becomes aggressive and tries to attack him. He punches her, knocking her unconscious. Back at the house, Ness and Michael continue searching for clues. Ness finds a collection of books in various languages and realizes he can read them all, including Latin and French. Most of the books are about anatomy, and Ness understands them perfectly, leading Michael to suggest that the house might belong to Ness. Ness starts to believe this might be true. When the others return to the house, Ness speaks to the Stranger in Latin, and the Stranger understands him perfectly. This surprises Ness, who begins to feel that he and the Stranger might have been close in some way, perhaps friends, but he can't remember. The next day, Ness, the Stranger, Lucas, and Sharon decide to explore the forest again, hoping to uncover more answers. Michael stays behind with the mute girl and tries to communicate with her. He confesses that he feels a connection to her, even love, but doesn't know why. He asks her to share anything she remembers, but she remains unable to communicate. Suddenly, Michael hears screaming coming from somewhere in the forest. He tells the mute girl to hide inside the house while he grabs a weapon and heads toward the source of the noise. He finds a man trapped in barbed wire screaming for help. Michael tries to assist him, and he unties him, but this person keeps strangling him with the barbed wire he has. Then he grabs something like a knife and tries to help him untie himself, but ends up grabbing a knife and starting a fight. He begins to bleed and die. On the other side, there was Ones and Sharon searching in the forest. They search until they find people tied to trees, dead, and looking in terrible shape, but no one pays attention to them at the moment. They continue wandering in the forest until they find some cars. They open them and check inside, only to find that each car has very little fuel, not enough to take them anywhere. They find a picture in one of the cars showing Lucas, Michael, Wands, Sharon, and the mute girl together. At that moment, Lucas tells everyone that the stranger is not with them, making it clear that he doesn't belong to their group and isn't trustworthy as he claimed. But the stranger says it's very possible that he was the one who took that picture. Still, Lucas doesn't trust him at all. Therefore, Lucas tells everyone that they won't move the cars for now. Everyone agrees with him, and they continue wandering in the forest until they reach Michael, who is taking his last breaths. At that moment, the mute girl comes and starts crying over him, very sad because it seems she loved him or something, as Michael had hinted before. The stranger who killed Michael starts screaming, so the stranger pulls out his gun and shoots him, finishing him off. After all that happened, they agree with the stranger and decide to take one of the cars and drive it, hoping to find something because staying in their current state isn't an option. They indeed take a car and start driving until they reach a strange building that looks like a hospital. Inside the building, there's a locked room. The stranger approaches the room to see who's inside. He finds a child inside, terrified of the stranger, repeatedly saying he knows him and calling him Jonah. From here, we learn that the stranger's real name is Jonah. The child keeps telling Jonah to leave because he's not one of them, and warns that many people will come and kill everyone. The child pleads with Jonah to leave. Jonah, however, insists on knowing who he is and what the child is talking about. But the child doesn't open the door. Jonah takes out his gun and starts shooting at the door to open it, but fails. Eventually, Sharon takes him away, and they leave. As they walk, Jonah tells Sharon that he feels like he knows her and even loves her, though he doesn't know how or why. He doesn't even know who she is. While walking, they encounter a tree blocking the road. They get out to move it, only to be surprised by a group of people working on cutting trees. Jonah tries to talk to them, but it turns out to be a mistake because these people don't speak and act like madmen, almost like zombies. They start chasing Jonah to kill him. Jonah quickly runs back to the car, but it won't start. He keeps trying to push it, but it still won't work. Suddenly, Jonah notices that the strange people have stopped chasing him. He looks ahead and sees corpses hanging from a tree. Realizing that these bodies were deliberately placed there as a scare tactic for these strange people, Jonah feels that someone hung these bodies specifically to scare off the strange people, but no one knows who did it. Meanwhile, Wands, Lucas, and the mute girl are at the house. Lucas begins to feel strange and tells everyone that he has a severe headache. He starts acting strangely, grabbing the mute girl's hand violently and telling her he knows her. Wands pulls him away and tells him to rest. Later, Wands talks to the mute girl and tells her he wants to go to the cabin where the strange woman was because he feels like he knows her well and might remember something there. The mute girl agrees and takes Wands there before leaving. Alone, Wands explores the place, feeling familiar with it. As he searches, he finds a pair of glasses and realizes they belong to him. He puts them on and keeps exploring until he finds the strange woman whose name he finally remembers, Helen. He asks Helen to remind him of something, but she doesn't respond and instead tries to attack him. Wands locks her in the room to prevent her from harming him. Afterward, Wands leaves the place and notices that everyone around him looks strange, almost monstrous. Wands points his gun at them to keep them away. Meanwhile, Lucas is still feeling a severe headache and acting insane. He starts chasing the mute girl again, but she hides from him. Lucas gives up searching and goes down to the basement of the house, where he finds many screens displaying surveillance footage from the cabin, if you remember. Lucas also finds a small camera. He plays a video stored on it, which shows Jonah conducting experiments on people. Jonah says he's close to finding a cure, but the cure has side effects, such as causing memory loss. Jonah tries to improve the cure and begins documenting the people he's experimenting on, including Lucas and the mute girl. At this moment, Lucas realizes that Jonah is the one responsible for everything that happened to them. Lucas waits for Jonah and Sharon to return. When they arrive, Lucas confronts them, showing Sharon the video and explaining everything. Sharon believes him and becomes terrified of Jonah. Lucas forces Jonah to walk to the pit where the corpses are and throws him in again. Afterward, Lucas and Sharon return to the house, where the mute girl is. Lucas's condition worsens, and he tries to attack the mute girl. Sharon pulls out her gun and threatens him, scaring Lucas away. Sharon stays in the house and finds a collection of books and research. She starts reading them and begins to recall everything, shocked by what she remembers. Meanwhile, Jonah is in the pit when the mute girl throws him a rope, allowing him to climb out. Jonah tells the mute girl to stay away from him because he feels like he's an evil person. He says he needs to remember everything and wants everyone to stay away from him to avoid harming anyone. Jonah then returns to the hospital. This time, he starts remembering some things. He recalls being with someone and giving that person doses of the cure he invented. Jonah drew a map for this person and instructed them to follow it to meet the army and deliver the doses, as the army would arrive on the 18th. Until that happens, the plague at the time will spread. But it seems that Jonah was a scientist or something like that, and he was the creator of a specific cure for a certain plague. This plague is likely what turned people into the crazed individuals we've seen from the beginning until now. It's implied that the military was supposed to come and take the cure from Jonah on the 18th to distribute it around the world. However, Jonah was afraid the plague would spread further, so he sent someone to the military with the cure. After that, for some unclear reason, Jonah and the people with him forgot all about it. Jonah keeps wandering around the hospital until he encounters a strange-looking man and woman who also don't speak. The woman tries to attack Jonah, so he shoots her and leaves. Afterward, Jonah leaves the place and drives until his car breaks down. Suddenly, he sees the child Jonah he had seen earlier, accompanied by an elderly woman, a completely deranged girl, and a savage young woman. Jonah tries to talk to them, and the elderly woman tells him that he's not like them and shouldn't get close. She also tells him that she could kill him, but chooses not to because she's not like him. She leaves, taking some of her belongings in a car and driving away. Meanwhile, Jonah finds a crashed car nearby. Inside, he discovers the same person he had sent to deliver the cure to the military. That person is dead, but the cure is still with them. Jonah takes the cure and decides to keep it, still not fully understanding what's going on. In the car, Jonah also finds a picture of himself with Sharon, realizing that they were truly in love, or possibly engaged. Amidst all this, Lucas arrives in a car and crashes into the car with the dead man inside. Lucas gets out, completely deranged, and tries to kill Jonah. Jonah tries to explain that he's not evil, and was likely trying to help Lucas and everyone else. But Lucas doesn't listen and keeps trying to kill him. Jonah picks up a rock, hits Lucas with it, and kills him. Suddenly, Jonah starts to remember bits of his past. He recalls being with Ness, Sharon, Michael, the mute woman, and even Lucas. From these memories, Jonah realizes that they were all doctors, and Ness was his brother. They were there trying to find a cure for a certain plague that had spread across the world, turning people into savage, crazed individuals like the ones we've seen. But things spiraled out of control. Jonah remembers a time when they were all together, and a savage woman attacked them, trying to kill them. At the time, Jonah and Ness blamed each other for failing to control the disease before it spread so widely. That's all Jonah remembers for now. Meanwhile, we shift to Ness, who also starts remembering everything and is just as shocked as Jonah. He heads to the house where Sharon is, remembering that she was Jonah's fiancée. Sharon too has remembered everything. They decide to tell Jonah everything because they believe he hasn't remembered yet. They stay there until the next day. The next day, they find that many savages have surrounded the house. They start shooting at them, killing as many as they can. At one point, Sharon writes everything she remembers in a letter for Jonah, in case they all die. Amidst all this, a group of people arrives and starts killing the savages. Ness realizes that these people are soldiers from the rescue team that was supposed to take them on the 18th. He leaves Sharon to go meet them. However, the strange thing is that the soldiers shoot Ness and kill him in a shocking scene. Jonah arrives at the location and is devastated to find his brother dead. He realizes that the rescue team wasn't there to save them, but to kill everyone to prevent the plague from spreading further. They weren't there to take the cure or anyone alive as they had thought. Jonah finds Sharon, who tells him she remembers everything. He takes her, and they try to escape. Suddenly, a savage woman attacks Sharon and stabs her. Jonah kills the savage woman and takes the injured Sharon with him, hiding in a glass pit to avoid the soldiers. After some time, the soldiers arrive, dump a few bodies into the pit, which turn out to be the boy, the elderly woman, and the savage girl who were with Jonah earlier, and leave after confirming no one is alive. Jonah tries to save Sharon but fails. She asks him to take a dose of the anti-serum to protect himself from the plague, and gives him the letter she wrote before dying peacefully. Jonah injects himself with the serum and loses consciousness. The mute woman comes to Jonah, throws him a rope, and helps him climb out of the pit. Jonah and the mute woman decide to continue their mission to eradicate the plague, knowing that if they fail, it will destroy the world. And that's where the movie ends. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification button so you never miss an updates. See you in the next video. Goodbye.